Now, for a long time now, parents who bear a child through the normal channels and those who adopt have been able to claim maternal and paternal employment protection, leave and pay. Well, this week, despite a judgment from the European Court denying similar rights to parents of a child born through surrogacy, the UK government has made it lawful for surrogacy to be treated equally. Natalie Gamble is the solicitor who's campaigned for a change in the law. Natalie, what exactly will the changes mean?
The changes will mean that parents who have a child through surrogacy will have exactly the same rights to time off work and employment protection that parents have if they adopt a child or give birth. So it's a fantastic change for parents in practice in terms of their rights, and very important.
How common is surrogacy in the UK?
Well, it's always very difficult to gauge the true numbers because we don't really have a proper framework for surrogacy in the UK. But the numbers we do have show us that the numbers have gone up dramatically in the last couple of years. So there were around 50 cases per year 4 years ago, and they've gone up to at least the hundreds last year and quite possibly the thousands if you include all the parents who are currently going overseas for surrogacy.
What do you mean they're going overseas for surrogacy?
Well, it's possible for parents who have difficulty trying to find a surrogate mother in the UK to access commercial surrogacy services abroad in places like India and the US, and to engage a professional agency to help them find a surrogate there. So lots of children are being born through surrogacy arrangements to UK parents in other countries.
Because, of course, in this country there are very strict rules around how you choose a surrogate, are they not?
There are, and surrogacy is legal in the UK and always has been, but there isn't a framework which allows it to be done on an organised basis. So the way it works is that surrogates and parents find each other in kind of unregulated ways, so via online forums and Facebook pages and some agencies which exist on an unregulated basis. And they then go forward with what's really a kind of informal adventure. So they can put an agreement in place between them, but it's not legally binding, and they're not able to access support from a lawyer with drafting that. And the law here says that the surrogate and her husband are the legal parents, and they go through the process then with that kind of uncertainty and lack of clarity. And it's only after the birth that a legal process kicks in, which enables the parents to apply to become the legal parents. So that's very different to the way it works in other countries, where you can enter into binding contracts and you can engage agencies to help you find surrogates and support you through the process.
But there are serious questions to be asked, aren't there, about the whole idea of buying someone to bear your baby?
Well, I think that there's a lot of misinformation about how payments for surrogacy works, and currently the rules in the UK are really unclear, very vague, and nobody really understands how they're supposed to work. And the reality on the ground is that surrogates in the UK are often paid around £15,000 for their expenses, and actually that's very little different to the $20,000 to $30,000 that surrogates are paid as compensation, for example, in the US. So I think there are some difficult questions around payments, but really they centre around making sure that people go into things with real clarity and understanding about the implications of what they're doing, so that they're making a really informed choice and they're not being induced by an offer of payment to do something they wouldn't otherwise do. But really that's why we need a better regulated framework here in the UK, so that support is provided at the outset. I mean, if you contrast surrogacy with the way things work for egg donation, where public money is spent on encouraging women to come forward, and they then have regulated services which make sure that they get really good information, really good counselling, really good medical advice, and that there's then legal clarity about who the parents are. With surrogacy, none of that exists in the UK, and it's something that's really, really needed.
But it's a very different question, isn't it? Donating an egg or having an embryo implanted inside you and bearing it and then raising it, from expecting another woman to carry your baby to term.
Well, I'm not sure they are so different. I mean, we work with Brilliant Beginnings, which is the agency that we've set up to try and provide that support structure as a model for people at the beginning. And we see with surrogates that come forward that actually what motivates them is wanting to help somebody else have a family. And they're typically women who, have found it easy to have their own families, and they really want to help make that possible for somebody else who's struggling. And that's very similar to the women who come forward as egg donors, that it is a very altruistic, very giving thing to to do. And it just seems, wrong that egg donors are given all this support, but surrogates don't have the same access to a clear framework. We know from experience that people worry a lot about surrogacy arrangements going wrong and surrogates wanting to keep the baby if they've carried it and given birth, but actually it happens incredibly rarely in practice. And surrogates are very clear that they are carrying somebody else's baby and that they are doing that for the parents.
It's interesting that this decision by the UK government to allow maternity, paternity leave and employment protection has come in the same week that the European Court has said, no, that's not possible under European law. Why do you suppose there's that discrepancy?
Yeah, it's such a shame that there's that negative message from the European Court. But I think the important thing to say about that is it's really just about the court saying that EU law doesn't have the scope to impose on member states that they have to offer these rights. But that doesn't mean that it isn't up to individual member states to make their own decisions in areas like surrogacy. And obviously the UK government has decided that they do want to give maternity rights to parents through surrogacy.
So when do the new rules come in?
They will come into force for children who are born after April 2015. So approximately speaking, parents who are conceiving children through surrogacy from this summer onwards will have access to those new rights. But even in the meantime, there's often a lot of room for negotiation with employers if those legal rights aren't there strictly.
And just from what we've just been discussing, what does it mean for the legality surrounding surrogacy, the rights of the birth mother, the adoptive mother? Where do you expect that to go?
Well, I mean, it's a great step forward in recognising that intended parents through surrogacy are caring for their children from birth, but it's really just the first step on a journey, we hope, because we want to see the law reformed so that parents have that recognition more widely. So currently a surrogate, and if she's married, her husband, are treated as the legal parents from birth, even if they don't want to be and even if they're not the genetic parents at all. And the intended parents don't have that legal status. So, this is one recognition that parents should have rights from birth, and we would like to see a lot more recognition along the same lines.
Natalie Gamble, thank you very much indeed.